Accounting 200 is set up, it's a 2-day-a-week class, like a Monday, Wednesday. One day a week, they don't come to class at all. They just work on the software. So that's their preparation for class.
I think, honestly, the way that the class was structured, it really just helped solidify the principles for me. That I would watch the software before, I would do the practice quizzes, I would really study and take the time, and then when I went to class, we would just like practice and do examples, and she would go over a few of the hard concepts, but really class just solidified what I had already learned.
So Monday they would prepare for class, Wednesday we would be in class. Wednesday they come with their remotes, which is a system that I'm able to interact with them. They meet their group when they first come in. I'll put a problem up on the board and they'll immediately start to get to work in their groups and answer that problem. That first problem gives me a gauge of how the class is doing, how they're performing, and then from there I'm able to decide, do we need to talk about this more? Can we move on? Sometimes I'll have a series of questions to be able to see the level of the class of where they're at to get a baseline, and then we do application. So that is a busy hour and 15 minutes. It's moving quickly. The students are engaged. They're talking with people in front of them, behind them, around them to try to get all the information. I have 5 TAs that walk up and down the aisles. When I put students to work, I'll go walk up and down the aisles too. Then I'll stop the class periodically, talk about what they've just talked about, discuss it. If they have questions, you know, I often get, how can you answer anybody's question in that large of a group? If I have questions, I'll usually give a couple minutes where I'll say I'll take a couple questions, or I'll put them to work on the next problem and say, those that have questions, raise your hand. The TAs and I will go around and individually answer those questions. And then when I bring the group together again, I'll summarize some of those questions for the rest of the group, and then we'll kind of move forward from there.
It wasn't like you were in a class with 500 students. It was like you were in a class of like 10, and she just made it very personal, and she was very helpful in learning and getting the help that you need when you were struggling.
The TAs are very familiar with the class because they attend class and then they work in the accounting lab. So in addition to lectures, you need to provide a lot of resources for the student. Another thing that's really difficult about the class is that, at least for me, the most difficult part is I'm unable to know every student. So in my upper division classes, I know every student and I know who they are, I know their names, I know what topics they're struggling with. It's impossible for me to do that with a section of 700 to 800 students. So I try to make it as personal as I can. I send out weekly emails to the students, and often in those emails I'll tell them what I did that week or kind of add something to my personal life. And then I'll give them kind of heads up or things they should be looking for, kind of some reminders of the class, some resource things. That's in an attempt to try to personalize the class, to make them not feel like they're lost in a sea. And so each one individually is receiving an email from me.
In a class that was so big, she really interacted with students. I mean, it wasn't just a lecture, but she would ask questions, she would get students' opinions in class. It was really, I felt like it was a dialogue. And I mean, it wasn't always just a dialogue with me, but just the fact that she was interacting with the whole class in that way, just, I don't know, it made it feel a little more personal, even though there were a ton of people in there. She reached out to me personally just through email. I mean, I received a few emails from her saying, "You're doing really well in my class. I'd love to talk with you more about opportunities in the accounting program." And so in that way, I was able to get to know her a little bit more personally and find more opportunities.
It's interesting because whenever a student does come to my office, they talk to me and I'll say, you know, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? And they say, I thought we already knew each other. I know you so well. I felt like we already know each other. And so it may be kind of a one-sided, but I want them to feel that connection with me, that they can come to me with questions, that they feel like they're not just lost in some big sea of students. So we try to set aside some of these misconceptions, and then it's my job throughout the semester to show them that it's not just math and numbers, that it's actually communication, it's judgment, it's making good business decisions. It's more organizing data and pulling out the data you need to make good decisions rather than just writing out the data. And so often people think accounting is bookkeeping, which bookkeeping is a valuable skill, but we're teaching to be leaders and managers, and so that's what we're doing in our class.
Accounting was awesome. I really loved it. It was difficult and it took a lot of studying, but it was really interesting, and so I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my experience. I enjoyed the material that we were learning. Honestly, I think that's the only class I've ever taken at BYU that I was like excited to do my homework for.